It's backwards in the video.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in to another edition of the Stingray Show. Of course, I am Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, along with my co-host.
It's Brian Hamilton, also known as BHam.
That's
How are
right.
you guys doing today?
And it is BHam's birthday today.
Woo!
So, do you want to tell people how old you are, or should I say how many years young?
How many years young? Well, I'll just give you a hint. It's the same number that Magic Johnson wore at the Lakers. So, if you can figure that out, you can figure out how old I am or how young I am. Either way you want to put it, you're only as old as you feel. It's been a great birthday so far, and we would like to continue the celebration with you guys here on the Stingray Show.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Brian, well, let me ask you this before we get started. Of course, the Warriors were able to take the NBA Finals. Did it go as you thought it would, or was it, did it live up to the hype and your expectation?
Well, initially, no. But that's not because of Cleveland. That's because of how well the Warriors in 5. He was right. I was wrong. We should have made a bet on that, but we didn't.
Right.
We haven't I haven't been on the show with Steven for 2 weeks. We didn't do last week, and last week I would have had some different thoughts. I said that if they go down 2-0 going back to Cleveland, there would be no way to recover. And Matt Tynan, who we'll speak with later, said that as well. And we were completely right about that, Matt and I. What really surprised me was Cleveland taking Game 4 in the way they did. Because I thought that they would get swept after the way they lost Game 3, after that gut-wrenching defeat where they had the lead most of the game. What about you?
I completely agree with that. And, it was one of those situations where it is, LeBron is just like, what can you do?
He averaged a triple-double. 34 points, 12 rebounds, or was it 12
entire
assists?
Finals, yeah. And it's just like, what can you do? You throw those numbers up there, and it's just like that. It's just, what can you do?
And it's no disrespect to either team. I think that what I did 2 weeks ago was I gave the Cavs too much credit, and I would put a little more weight on this. I didn't give Golden State enough credit as to how good they were.
Right.
That was the overarching theme, and my pick was thinking that, well, look, they both looked really good in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, right? And you really couldn't tell, how each team was going to come out in the finals. I thought it would at least go to 6. Some people thought sweep. I never saw that. We almost got a sweep. But, I just didn't give Golden State enough credit is what it boils down to how good of a team that they actually were.
Yes.
And you did. You did think Golden State was that good. Durant just made the difference. There were games that Curry didn't play as well. Klay Thompson played awful.
Yes.
Almost the entire series. But he did hit some big clutch, timely shots. Mm-hmm. But Durant was just otherworldly. And outside of one game, Steph came through too. So that was all they needed. Draymond didn't have the series he had last year. But that was okay. He did all he needed to do defensively. And so did Klay. Klay played great defense. That was all they needed him to do.
Would you agree, Brian, based on what you saw in the finals, that if Steph Curry was 100% last year, they could have possibly beaten the Cavs last year too. I kind of felt that way after watching what Curry did in games, the game Monday night.
Yeah, well, possibilities are endless, and I don't like to ever go that road because you could also say that Cleveland, the way LeBron James played better in 2015 than he did last year. You could also say with Kyrie and Love, with Cleveland taking 2 games in 15, that the Cavs, this could have been their first win against the Cavs. So I hate to play hypotheticals for that reason, but yes, I mean, the possibility was there that if he was healthy, they could have won. But you could go and you could say the same thing about the Cavs in 2015, that if they had Love, if they had Irving, they could have won that year. So I hate to play that. It was the rubber match, and we had everybody healthy this year. Everybody on both teams. Granted, Durant. And we saw who was best. I would have loved to seen the matchup with everyone healthy without Durant, but that's not the way that the world works. So Durant's the king right now. I'm not taking the throne away from LeBron quite yet, but he does look poised. And the only reason I say this, LeBron had a triple-double. He's still, in my opinion, the best player in the world, but Kevin Durant is breathing down his neck. If he repeats next year, and if it's against LeBron again, KD is poised to – LeBron's 5 years older than him. So he is gaining ground on LeBron. And when LeBron passes the torch, it will be – Kevin Durant, I believe.
Well, I was just about to ask you that. Who do you think the king is? Right, or not the king, but the better player, because there's a lot of people that have, KD's the best, then you have other people say LeBron's the best. So I was just about to ask you that question.
I still think LeBron.
Okay.
I mean, granted, he's 3-5 in the finals. Durant's just 1-1. He's still a young pup as far as... He's not even started climbing the top 50 yet in all-time points. LeBron is, I believe, number 7. He may be higher than that. He's getting up there just past Shaq. It's going to take a little bit of time for me to give that title to KD, but I believe he is. Okay, let's look at it this way. In Texas, we had Mac Brown, who was the coach in waiting before he left.
Muschamp.
Same thing with Bobby Bowden. Jimbo, coach in waiting. KD is the best player in the world in waiting. I think it's only going to be another year or two. Only going to be another year or two, but he will be the greatest in a couple years because LeBron got a lot of mileage. He's been in the league 14 years. He's 32. I believe by the time LeBron's 34, 35, it'll be KD's reign. It's the greatest. Because he'll only be about 30 at that time.
Someone just asked on Twitter, and I did not get their name. I do apologize. I would have said it, but I didn't get it. But who is the best point guard right now in the NBA?
Well, it's Steph Curry.
Yes, gotta be.
You can make an argument for Chris Paul, but Steph Curry... I don't know how much of a true point guard he is now, but he's a hell of a shooter. He can play the 2. He can play the point. I would say Steph Curry, you have to because he's listed as a point guard, and that's easily the best point guard. I believe.
And what? All right, this guy asked, is LeBron about to retire? And the reason they asked that is because if you followed my Twitter, and unfortunately I did this the other night, and I posted on Twitter that LeBron might actually retire, and I got absolutely blasted for that because
he's too young. I think he's too young. He's 32, and he's just a few months older than me. Granted, I don't have the physical capabilities as he does, and he's probably the only person in the world that has those capabilities.
But I'm telling you, he's got a lot of miles on those legs.
He's still chasing records. I mean, if he can average, you cannot retire after you just averaged a triple-double in the finals in a losing effort. His last 3 finals statistics statistically have
Right.
been his best since he went back to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
He's having to do more. He doesn't have Dwayne Wade to depend on at times.
Yes.
And granted, there were times in Miami where you couldn't depend on Wade because of the knee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think he's got at least 4, maybe 5 good years in him. It just depends on how close he gets and how he wants to pursue the record of Karl Malone and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the all-time scoring record. He's already started to knock down some of Magic's playoff records. He passed him with 9 triple-doubles, the most in playoff history. He passed Jordan as the all-time leader in playoff. He's just 32. I don't think he'll retire yet, but I believe the chase is over.
Right.
I mean, as long as Golden State stays together, just get to the finals every year, it's going to be tough. Now, could you add a Carmelo Anthony, somebody like that? I don't know. That's what
Too
free
many
agency.
egos. Too many
it would
egos.
be. It would be because Kyrie needs the ball a lot. LeBron, not necessarily, but I think Kyrie and Melo would really match because they need the ball in isolation too much. If Melo came, Love would have to go, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
All right. Somebody just asked. Well, or made the statement. Karl Anthony Towns will be the most dominant player in the NBA in 3 years. Do you agree?
I can't disagree. I mean, he's really good. I watched him at
Yes.
Kentucky that year. They almost went undefeated.
Right.
I can't agree, but I can't disagree.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's on that path. Rookie of the year last year, had an amazing season. I really like Minnesota. They have a lot of talent, and they're young. They're all under 25 except for Rubio.
Right.
And they may trade him. You never know. So I really like what Minnesota's doing. It's so hard to make the playoffs in the West.
Milwaukee, though.
Milwaukee?
Matt Tynan said,
Milwaukee's
the Bucks-
another up-and-comer. Yeah, they're another up-and-comer, and they have the luxury of being in the East.
Yes.
If Minnesota was in the East, I think they would have been a 5 seed this year.
Right.
They are that good, but the West is stacked still.
Yep.
And
Well, let me ask you this. And I'm going to ask Matt Tynan this here in
Okay,
just a little
great,
bit too, but if you are the Cavs GM, owner, coach, what do you do this offseason to be able to compete with the Warriors to win the championship? With what they have, what piece do you bring in?
I mean, I don't know. You have to look at the payroll. I don't know how the payroll shakes down.
Right.
Depends on how much luxury tax that Dan Gilbert wants to pay. I mean, if you want to bring in Melo, I don't know if he'll take less money. He just took a huge deal in New York, which he didn't live up to. And like I said, I don't know if the moving parts all work together to get him. I really don't know, to tell you the truth. As good as Golden State looked, I don't know there's anything that the Cavs can do to overcome it.
I know. It's the kind of those, it's basically right now, the whole NBA is waiting to see what the Warriors do when they have to pay Steph Curry and all that stuff.
But that's still a few years away.
I know, but when they do that, they may actually bust up the Warriors because Steph may want to go, hey, I want to be the highest paid because look what I've done for y'all. So, and I could see a scenario where all those egos with the money could it could blow to, pardon my language, it could blow to hell and back.
Personally, I could see Steph as being the one that never leaves, unless he wants to go to Charlotte.
Right.
You know, that's where he's from.
Yes.
Durant, yeah, he could leave because he could decide to go back to Oklahoma City.
Right.
Whereas I really don't know if I see that.
But Draymond Green, definitely, he has that attitude problem. And if it came down to money, I think he would be the one to completely blow everything apart.
And the lack of shots that he's gotten, too, I could see Klay Thompson leaving for a big deal. He's the first one I could see going, to be honest, is Klay Thompson.
Somebody's continually asked on Twitter, who do we like in the U.S. Open? I have no idea.
Tiger Woods?
Yeah. I don't know if he's even gonna play.
Well, that's probably tennis. I don't watch much tennis or golf.
Right.
So.
But yeah, if you guys want us to answer your questions, feel free to comment down there, and we will answer them.
Try to stay
related.
on subject though.
Yep. like with
we're on basketball
sports.
right now.
Yeah. Well, Brian, it was definitely a disappointing year for the NBA, to say the least. Wouldn't you agree? And some people are calling it maybe the worst ever for the league. Would you say it was that bad?
Well, we knew what we were going to get when Kevin Durant signed with the Warriors. We knew what we were going to get, and we didn't know it was to be this lopsided. It was pretty much like one of my friends said today, it was like 99 exhibition games up until the finals.
Right.
What are some things they could fix? Well, no. You don't have to fire Adam Silver for the league not having as much competitive balance as it needs. But one thing that I would do, the NBA needs this more than any league. I doubt they'll ever do it because they lean on the teams in the big markets like LA, Boston, New York, although they're never good, to be up there and get them exposure. But the NBA truly needs a hard salary cap. The NFL has one. The NFL is the league that doesn't need a hard salary cap. You could have a super team in the NFL and they could implode because you got to get 22 guys on each side of the ball working together. You get a team with 3 superstars, 4 superstars out of 5 that are going to be on the court together. The NBA needs a hard salary cap. What I think, though, is the NBA doesn't want that because we don't want Milwaukee, Charlotte being a homegrown superpower. We want LA, Boston, New York, Chicago, Houston, the
New
big
Orleans.
markets. Well, New Orleans, yeah.
I mean, they haven't done anything in a while.
They really haven't, if ever. I mean, since Chris Paul.
If AD could stay healthy, they would.
AD won't. I don't think AD will stay in New Orleans.
You think he wants somewhere else?
Yeah, they're just not a big enough market, and they probably won't pay the luxury tax. I don't even see the thing with him and Boogie Cousins working out. So it's just the NBA lacks competitive balance. That's what we work on the CBA for, and it don't always work. You know, they went with Chris Paul as president a couple of years ago to create that. With the collective bargaining agreement, they wanted to give the supermax contracts. Well, what's it done?
Right.
We've only got more of a monopoly in the East and West.
What about Paul George to Cleveland? Would that help?
Yeah, I just don't know how you can do it without moving another big piece.
Right.
Do you? Yeah, if you let go of Kevin Love and take Paul George, I think you upgrade.
Right.
He's a really good defender, and as we see, that's what Cleveland needs.
And
they
LeBron. I'm sorry to interrupt, but LeBron cannot defend. He was horrible Monday night. He would let Iguodala and Durant do whatever they wanted to, and he could not defend. Or let me put it this way: he would not put out the effort to do so.
Well, now in LeBron's defense, I've seen him guard Curry last year. I've seen him guard. The Derrick Rose, his MVP year. LeBron a lot of times is put on the best player. The reason that I think he struggled defensively the last game especially, he was asked to do more than he's used to being asked to do on these super teams offensively. He was drained. Kevin Durant's getting to rest 10, 15 minutes because the other stars are so good. I think I won't give LeBron a knock offensively, defensively, or in any way because he had to do so much, and he was playing like nearly 48 minutes. So it's hard to knock him there.
How will Markelle Fultz do in Boston?
Well, he's not been drafted yet, but they seem to be leaning that way, and I really don't know. These rookies, they're hard to tell about. So I've not watched him play. Sorry to interrupt, because Washington was a 9-22 team. I don't watch a lot of Pac-12 basketball, especially when they don't make the tournament or the NIT or the CBIT or any tournament at all. So I don't know much about Markel Fultz, but from what I hear, scouts love him.
Right. Will Boston surpass Cleveland? I think that's a stretch, especially with LeBron like he is.
Not right now. Could they? Yeah.
But not right now.
And I don't think it happens with the rookie. I think Boston needs to trade the number 1 pick to try to get Paul George. I think that could help. If you can trade the number 1 pick for Paul George or a Blake Griffin, somebody like that. They need someone to help on the inside because Cleveland out-rebounded them tremendously.
Somebody said De'Aaron Fox would probably be the best guy in the draft.
I like him. Yeah, the Kentucky point guard. I like him a lot. He's really skilled offensively. His defense could use work. It's really his jumper. He's the best both ways, offensively and defensively, but he doesn't have a solid jumper. Apparently, Markel Fultz. I have not watched a single game of Washington, so I've not watched Markel Fultz. I'm just going based on draft boards.
I really love Pac-12 football, though. Those late-night games can be fun out there in the West.
Yeah, because during the week when Pac-12 basketball is on, I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because you got to get up. You got to go to work the next morning. But Saturday night, you're looking for something on at 2 a.m., turn it over to the Pac-12 network.
Somebody just said that Fultz is the next James Harden.
He could be.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yep. Well, let's switch gears and talk about the College World Series for just a second, if you don't mind. There are a lot of teams going to Omaha. However, Mississippi State, unfortunately, is not one. But, Brian, I want you to look at Oregon State's record for a second. They have only lost 4 games all year. I literally feel like it is their tournament to lose, with them being that good.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. There's a lot of teams that can say they haven't lost a series the entire year, but only losing 4 games.
Yeah, and 3 of those were in Pac-12 play.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty stout. Now, I will tell you this, though. Their pitcher was released or left the team because of a sexual assault. He was accused of that. But it didn't seem to hurt them that much against Vanderbilt.
It wasn't that... It wasn't that he was just accused of it. It's something that happened earlier in his life. Granted, most of you already know. If you don't know, it was a molestation charge. It was only really brought up in to the public because he failed to register as a sex offender. From the research that I've done, he registered when he moved to college in Oregon. He was given a misdemeanor because he was 15 years old, 16 years old when it happened.
Yeah.
And now I've heard that the scouts and the MLB are saying they won't even touch the guy. So I don't want to get any more depth than that because it's really disturbing, but you can look that up and research that if you would like. But it's pretty disturbing that I would rather not really even discuss on the show the details of that. But, it's something you really don't see go hand in hand with a college athlete.
Right.
You hear about it with these crazy loonies on the news, but you don't hear of college athletes having this issue happen that he did.
Okay,
but I still think they're a threat to win the World Series even without him. They're 54-4.
54-4, and this is their 5th appearance in Omaha. Okay, Cal State Fullerton, which is also out west. This is their 17th appearance in the College World Series. They've lost 22. LSU, who took down Mississippi State, has 17 losses, and they have 17 appearances as well, and most recently won it in 2009. Okay, then of course you have Florida State, Louisville, A&M, Florida, and TCU. So that's a pretty good field, and it starts, of course, this weekend. And I'm really glad that three SEC teams made it when there was 6 in the Super Regionals. That's pretty decent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just don't let Florida win it. They've already won softball. They win softball and/or baseball every year.
They didn't win softball. Oklahoma got them.
Oh, they did?
Oklahoma beat them
In the 3rd game? All right.
Oklahoma beat them.
I know. I think I remember turning on the 3rd game that night at the time
They
slot.
won. I think they won.
Florida won the first, didn't they?
And then they won 2 more. I just looked that up here before we got on the show. But yeah, I mean, you know, the College World Series, I mean, that's definitely going to be a lot of fun, and I believe
Florida is always really good in both sports.
Yes.
Softball and baseball. Them win.
No. But it's definitely, I mean, this is the fun time, man. I mean, this really is, you know, right here around to see who is going to win a championship, and then you have a little bit of break, and then we start talking about college football. In which today I will have to show y'all this. I picked up Athlon Sports College Football, and it has Jalen Hurts on the front, along with Jake Browning, DeAndre Francois, and JT Barrett. So we are definitely in the thick of college football right now. And I tell you what, man, we had an interesting story come out over the weekend about the Ole Miss Rebels and Mississippi State. Rebel Rags, a apparel store from Ole Miss, filed a lawsuit against 2 Mississippi State players. How about that?
It's interesting.
It definitely is. And basically, Brian, what are your thoughts on the whole Ole Miss situation? I mean, the whole, allegations, you freeze them paying players and all that.
Well, I mean, it's not good. I've not really followed the Ole Miss allegations at all. All I know is they're in shit and the shit's deep. So I've not really followed it. I'm going to be honest, I really don't follow probations unless it's my team. Mm-hmm. And my team has had a good one of those back in the early 2000s.
Right.
And hopefully we're doing things the right way now. However, I think everybody cheats. It's just if you get caught.
Yeah, the dumb ones get caught.
I do, yeah. And Ole Miss apparently is fill in the blank. They did get caught. So,
right.
That's all I really have to say about it. I've not followed really all the details and split hairs to see exactly what happened, but do you want to fill in a little bit more about that?
Well, I will tell you this, though, Brian, and I thought this was interesting. The former lawyer for Ole Miss said that this was going to be the closest to the death penalty that you could get, and they're talking about 80 scholarship reductions over multiple years. That's going to hurt, man, and especially when you are talking about a program like Alabama or something more like that. But if you're talking about Ole Miss that doesn't have the tradition, man, it could be a long, long time before they come back.
In Athlon Sports, in the issue that just came out, you've got the college football issue. I have the SEC issue. Mm-hmm. They actually ranked them 7th in the SEC West, Ole Miss.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They lost a lot of players along with the probation.
Yes.
But guess where Mississippi State is?
6th.
No. 5th.
Real? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I can see that.
Number 6 is
Arkansas.
A&M. Everyone has lost faith in someone. He can't keep a quarterback. They think that the new guy will not be that good. Hubenek.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Hey, how many years have they ranked state last?
Right.
3?
Yes. 4. Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
Were y'all ranked last when you came in second in the SEC even. So now State's getting a little bit of respect, and it's about damn time, right?
Right. Just had a question here. USC, are you talking about South Carolina or are you talking about Southern Cal? Because there's two USCs.
If it's with probation, he's probably talking about Southern Cal.
Okay.
But I remember when those allegations came out about Reggie Bush.
Man,
probably
that
the
was...
most famous player ever to get.
I don't know, man.
A school put on probation.
I think Southern Cal might actually be a pretty good team this year, and I think they could contend for maybe a spot in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
I think they're that good.
Would you have guessed that in Arlington at the first game of the year last year when they got, was it 55-6
or something like that? Yeah,
I was at that game. I was at that game, but I can't remember the score because it got so out of hand. In Jerry's world. And
it's amazing how that team turned around and made it to the Rose Bowl.
Won the Rose Bowl. They were 1-3 and ended up finishing 10-3.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really impressive. I think they're on the right track, but every year's a new year. You've seen so many teams that aren't able to carry that momentum over.
Right. And, after Sarkisian was fired, let go, whatever you want to say out there, I thought they would take a step back. I mean, majorly take a step back. And they've done nothing but really build a successful program.
That's true. Clay Helton has done a good job. And, they're better than they were with Sarkisian. I mean, I don't know. They've improved. They took their lumps early last year when Brown got pulled, Max Brown, who was awful in the first game against Alabama. They threw in the redshirt freshman, and it just took time. And after the 1-3 start, he got it together.
Yeah.
And appears to be one of the top quarterback prospects in this year's draft class upcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So what about another team that there's been a lot of talk about, Stingray, Auburn? Are they for real? Every time Auburn has hype, they fall flat on their face. Every time they're underrated, they rise to the occasion. How do you feel about them this year with a new quarterback? Do you think that Auburn is the real deal?
I don't, because they have to replace a lot on defense. They lost a lot off that defense last year, and so quarterback, it could be okay, but defensively, I think they're going to be struggling.
And I heard that, did they bring in a new offensive coordinator?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know his name? I don't either. He must not be important.
He's never important if you're an Alabama fan. You know that, right?
Exactly. But apparently, they want to throw the ball more. And I said, well, by God, I hope so, because Jared Stidham, I saw him at Baylor. He don't zigzag and scoot too well.
Yeah.
He's a pocket passer. He's not gonna run. So you need to bring in. I believe that Auburn specifically brought in a new offensive coordinator to fit this guy. So,
but
if he has a bad season, Malzahn, he may be shown the door.
Yeah.
Because they have replaced an offensive coordinator and suited him to a transfer quarterback's needs. None of them were in the picture last year.
Right. And here's the deal, too. Yes, the second chance U quarterback, James Franklin, did go to Auburn.
But he's not playing.
No. And that's what you get, man. So, but anyway, what are they going to do about wide receivers down there? I mean, of course, they've got
James Franklin.
That
could be a receiver. I mean, James Franklin's not going to play. It's going to be between Stidham, if there even is a competition, and who's the guy last year?
Sean White.
Sean White. I mean, Franklin's not going to play. You might as well convert him to a receiver.
Oh, yeah. I got you. Okay, bud. Well, you want to switch gears now and talk with Matt Tynan?
Absolutely. Let's talk some more basketball.
Yes.
I always love to hear Matt Tynan's
take on it.
His take on NBA. and this will probably be the last time we'll talk to him until free agency. And he may have some, which, of course, is in about 3 weeks from now. He may have some good takes on what free agents are going where.
Well, not only that, too, but you've also got the NBA draft.
We do,
and
absolutely.
I gotta ask you before we
the award ceremony is still coming up too.
While we are calling him, where do you think Ball ends up? Do you think it's L.A.
I hope
or
it
you
is.
think it's Boston? Because Boston gets the first pick.
I don't think Boston would pick him unless they do an Eli Manning. Eli Manning said, "I'm not going to play for the Chargers." What do the Chargers do? They pick his ass. And then they say, well, not literally pick his ass, but they pick him, and then they say, all right, New York, you want him, give us your pick and something else.
Right.
So I think that Boston, if they were smart and they know L.A. really wants Ball, that's what they do. But in a way, and I'll ask Matt about this, that's why I think, did you hear the report last week that said the Lakers look to be not that impressed with Lonzo Ball, and they still want to work out De'Aaron Fox? You know, these teams play with one another because if Boston knows that the Lakers are set on Ball, they can draft him first, and then they can say, oh, okay, we've got him. If you really want this guy, give us your pick at number 2. We'll trade him to you, but give us something else. So that's an option, too. The teams, it's really hard to tell what they're going to do until the draft. That's why the thing happened with Trubisky. No one knew Chicago was going to draft him because they weren't letting the cat out of the bag. You can't let the other teams know what you're going to do.
Right. Give me just a second.
I do think he goes to L.A.
Okay. And who else? I mean, I'm sure you're very, very happy that the Alabama player Key dropped his name out of the hat.
Well, it helps. I mean, Key, his issue was long scoring droughts. At times he would look lackadaisical, but he was probably our best athlete last season. It's not going to be the case going forward with Colin Sexton and some of the guys coming in from this year's recruiting class, but it really helps Alabama that he pulled his name out of the draft.
Oh, yeah.
It'll come back to Alabama for his sophomore season.
Should be quite interesting. All right, bud. Well, let's go on ahead and call Matt here in just a second. Hi, guys. How are you? Somebody just said that we catch rays. No, we do not. We catch sun rays, but that's about it, I guess. Anyway, all right, let's call Matt, man.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, man.
What's going on, Matt? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm sitting over here with the birthday boy.
Hey, Matt. That sure was a beat down that Cleveland put on them, didn't they? In game 4.
Oh gosh, that was fun. I picked Warriors in 5, so I'm happy about that.
Y'all both got me. I picked Cavs in 7, so I was completely wrong.
Well, Matt, what is your take on the overall finals? Did it live up to the hype and your expectation?
You know, I'm not sure if you can say it lived up to the hype.
Right.
I think we looked a lot into last year, or we dug a little bit too deep into last year in terms of how the Cavaliers were able to come back, because there were extenuating circumstances in that series last year, and it was not what you would typically, you have a very critical guy in Draymond Green getting suspended for a game, a very crucial game, Game 5. The Cavs come back, they win, they get to go back home, where obviously there's a home court advantage, and then there's a Game 7, and anything can happen in a Game 7. To me, I think we overreacted to that.
Right.
On top of the on top of the fact that the Warriors added Kevin Durant to a team that probably should have won the title last year. So, look, the Cavaliers might be the second best team in the league. They're right there in the conversation if you're just separating the Warriors from everybody else. But I think we did I don't want to say we overhyped it, because I think a lot of people really wanted to see this. I think a lot of people really wanted to see the rematch, the trilogy. So
yes.
I don't want to say that it's overhyped, but the Cavaliers just weren't as good as the Warriors, and it that came to fruition. We saw, even though they had a crazy Game 4, we saw that just in general they were overmatched. It was too much. It was too much for them. The Warriors are too much for everybody.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind. If you are Cleveland's GM, the owner, and the coach, what do you do now in order to make them competitive with the Warriors? What piece do you bring in?
Oh my gosh, the problem is the Cavaliers are capped out.
Okay.
They can't spend money on anybody. Okay. So if you're talking, the reason the Warriors were so fortunate to come into this situation is because of the massive cap spike and the ability to absorb a contract like Kevin Durant's. The Cavaliers are not going to have that ability. So essentially, they're going to have to trade one of their main pieces to get, I mean, hell, if you want to, let's say Paul George. Let's say that the Pacers are willing to trade Paul George. You're going to have to get rid of Kevin Love. You're going to have to, and Kevin Love was not good in the finals, so maybe they're willing to do that. But the way that they have maximized their cap with LeBron, Kyrie, Love, and Tristan Thompson, which felt like a LeBron deal the whole time, it's going to be difficult for them to at least make their team better, like substantially better, in the same way that Golden State was able to do that. And I don't really see a way that they're going to be able to do that, because they gotta the way Golden State was able to do it was they could just pay somebody. They didn't have to make a big trade. The Cavaliers are going to have to make a big trade, and they're going to have to trade a piece. So they're not exactly in the same place that Golden State was last season. So maybe you talk about a Paul George or a Gordon Hayward or whatever, but if you're getting one of those guys, you got to give up another big piece, and that just sort of it's kind of a wash, right? Like you're not talking about adding a piece like Kevin Durant to your team already, so it's gonna be very, very difficult for them to do anything, or any team in the NBA to do anything.
Okay.
Matt, I got a question for you. The funny thing is that as we sit here talking about what each team could do better, it's not to beat the Pacers, not to beat Boston. It's two teams we're talking about. Do you think it's time, and the only way to fix this problem is that the NBA, we talked about this earlier, should the NBA institute just a hard salary cap? The NBA, I think, needs it more than the NFL, because the NFL, you could assemble a dream team. It doesn't always work with 22 guys. Do you think that would be a way to create competitive balance? Just make a hard salary cap, no luxury tax, no nothing?
See, no, I do not, because, and especially when you just mentioned the NFL does not thrive off of individual star power. The NBA does. And whenever you have small markets, especially when you're talking about, free agents maybe wanting to go to LA or Boston or Miami or Chicago, areas like that, the big markets in the NBA, those smaller markets are at a very big disadvantage. And you have to have star power to make money in the NBA and to win in the NBA. You absolutely have to. In the NFL, you can still win. I'm not saying you can't win without star power, because you have to. But I think in the NFL, you can still make a lot of money. You can still be successful without sort of name brand guys. The NBA, there are only 5 guys on the court. So I don't think a hard cap. In fact, I would rather the NBA just have, and this is an aside, I would rather the NBA just not have any cap at all, because then guys can be paid whatever they are, whatever they're worth, because LeBron James, Kevin Durant, guys like this are worth a lot more than what the salary cap allows, even though the salary cap has gotten ridiculous. But I think that it is important to give the small market teams who draft these players the luxury of being able to pay them more, so that they can keep them, and so that we can achieve parity in the NBA. I think that is important. But so, and again, to compare it to football, to me, is a little bit different, because, man, I know you guys are football fans, but the vast majority of people couldn't identify the majority of NFL players if they put them in a lineup. Other than a Peyton Manning or a Brett Favre or guys like that, it's a different type of sport, because there's a helmet on their face or on their head and a face mask over their face. So a little bit of a different sport. The NBA is star driven, so I do not think that there should be a hard cap in the NBA. If I'm okay with where it is. But if I had to go one way or the other, salary cap or no cap, I'd go no cap, because these guys are worth so much money. It's difficult to justify the situation, essentially, in comparison.
You notice how it so gets old, like Paul George, Indiana, small market. How did we not know when they didn't get past the Heat 3 years ago that this was coming? And next thing you know, it's going to be Anthony Davis. He's not going to stay in New Orleans. I'm going to talk as soon as Towns. He'll never win a title in Minnesota. Now, I may be wrong, but that's the perception. These players will not stay in small markets long enough to win. And Towns will end up in L.A. or somewhere. And I hate that the small markets don't have a chance. And Cleveland only does because LeBron's homegrown, I believe.
Sure. I think that people overreact to this. The Warriors are going to get into a situation where they're going to have to pay people. It's a couple of years away, but they're going to have to pay people. And the salary cap is not jumping up that much more than it just did. It's going to jump up about $9 million, I believe, for the next season. But then it's going to smooth out. Things are going to change. The maximum salaries of players are tied to a percentage point of the entire salary cap. So there's going to be a point where these players are not going to be able to get paid as much as they were this last season when Kevin Durant went to Golden State. So It's going to get to a point, and look, I feel like a broken record whenever I bring up the Spurs, and yeah, they had Tim Duncan, but they are a small market and were able to do this. They were able to work around the cap. They were able to convince guys to take a little bit less money. Hell, the Heat did it when LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh joined forces. They each, all of them, took less money. So we're talking about a situation where I think people overreact overall. Look, the Warriors are going to be great. They're going to be great for a while. Probably, unless something crazy happens, they're going to be good for a long time. But when you talk about a team like Minnesota, Karl Anthony Towns is going to be great. Andrew Wiggins is showing that he can play. That team has a very young core that can come up, and the teams that challenge the Warriors are these athletic, long players. So you can see a team like that coming into their own. You can see a team like the Bucks really coming into their own and challenging the Cavaliers in the East. So, and Utah, the Utah Jazz, they have a lot of young players and they're very athletic. So, I think people tend to overreact to this situation. I don't want to say that the Warriors are in trouble, because they're not. They're in a very, very, very good space right now. But there are teams, young and old, that are right there that can make some moves that can really change things. And hell, you don't want to talk about it, but any sort of injury might happen along the way. We saw it all through the playoffs. So you never really know what can happen in the NBA. I'm not worried for its future. I think that there are a lot of really good young stars and smart teams, smart veteran teams that are going to make some moves. And I think because of what Kevin Durant did, because of the move Kevin Durant made, there are going to be more stars willing to do it and willing to explore different options. So I'm not too worried about the future.
So what would it mean to the Spurs? I mean, how much of a threat would it be to the Warriors if the Spurs went and added Chris Paul and Paul George to Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge? And how would they be able to do it on the books?
It would take a whole hell of a lot of work to sign just one of those guys. So, look, to answer your first question, if they added Chris Paul and Paul George,
they're beating the Warriors.
They'd beat everybody. They would be the best team in the NBA, because I know from covering the team that they feel like they even had a shot against the Warriors this year. So if they added both of those guys, it would be ridiculous. But it would take a whole lot to even sign one of those guys. It would have to be something like trading Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Danny Green, because you're talking about a max contract now, given what the salary cap is going to be. For a guy like Chris Paul, that it would be around $35 million. It would be a ridiculous cost. So they wouldn't be able to do both of those, sign both of those guys. But they could find a way to sign one of those guys if they were even willing to go there. And even adding one of those guys would be good for them. But at the same time, San Antonio has been the thing that's been most important to San Antonio over the years is their depth and having guys that that they can rotate in and out all game. It's been their strength for years. So you never know. Golden State found a way to be very deep despite their high payroll on the top end guys. But if the Spurs were able to add one of those guys, it would be it would be a huge challenge to the Warriors. Not saying that they would be better than the Warriors, but certainly with Popovich as the coach, anything is sort of possible. And Kawhi Leonard's rise, Kawhi is ridiculous, but it's going to be really difficult to sign. To sign both of those guys, impossible, basically. To sign one of those guys, really, really difficult.
Let's move real quick to college basketball for a second. Obviously, there are a lot of good players that are leaving college, coming to the NBA. Boston has the number 1 pick. Who do you see Boston picking up number 1?
Oh, I mean, I think, and I'm not a college basketball expert, but it does seem that Markelle Fultz is the number 1, just kind of consensus, the number 1 overall pick.
Okay.
But it is interesting to me because of the fact that, this Celtic surge that they've had has been predicated around Isaiah Thomas, and he's a point guard.
Right.
And Markelle Fultz is a point guard. So it is going to be an interesting situation where maybe they can play together. Markelle Fultz is most NBA players are bigger than Isaiah Thomas. I think maybe every NBA player is bigger than Isaiah Thomas. But you're talking about a 6'4" point guard, a guy who really can't shoot all that well, but is super talented. And this draft is super talented, and it's deep, and the top end is sort of ridiculous, but they're all point guards. In Boston, looking at the way they play, Isaiah Thomas isn't sort of the traditional point guard in the sense of, like, he's not setting everything up. He's not necessarily a distributor. He's gotten better as a facilitator, but that's not really his game. He's more of a scorer, more of a shooter. So in my opinion, Isaiah Thomas is best suited to come off the bench as a sixth man. That did not work in Phoenix. I don't know what Phoenix was doing when they traded for him. And he's not very good defensively. So, I think you look at this situation, and even though you have a guy like Isaiah Thomas, I think you have to go with the best player available if you're Boston, because, hell, even when you draft him, you're probably not – maybe they sign Gordon Hayward over the offseason. Maybe they sign Gordon Hayward, bring him in, and they really bolster that team. I don't think that brings them all that much closer to beating the Cavaliers for the time being. In the future, maybe. We'll see how good a guy like Fultz can be. But it is a really interesting question, because all of the best players in this draft are point guards, and the Celtics already have that. But still, I think they're going to go best available and draft Markelle Fultz.
I got you. All right, bud. Well, thank you for your time. And if it's all right with you, we will touch base again when the draft is actually happening, or right after the NBA draft, to get your take on that.
Then we'll have free agency coming up right after the draft too, right?
The NBA is a lot like the NFL at this point, where it doesn't stop at any point all year. Now it's gonna be now they have that awards show. So we don't know who got MVP yet, which is crazy. We already know who got the NBA Finals MVP, and we don't know who got the regular season MVP. So I don't really get that.
I don't know how I like it. I don't like it as well as the old method.
We'll see. And still, I think people are going to watch. So we're going to have that awards show. We're going to have the draft. We're going to have free agency. So, and then Summer League comes up. It just sort of keeps going on and on. So, I'd be happy to join you, Steven.
All right, man. Thank you so much. And enjoy your time off if you get any.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you, guys, and happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, man. That was pretty good, don't you think?
Always a good, informative interview with Matt Tynan.
Yes.
Always love talking to him about some NBA, which we're done with, but like you said, the season never ends. It's kind of like college football. You go straight into the recruiting season, signing day, then into spring practice. But
Oh, yeah.
we are in, as we kind of start to wrap up the show a little bit, we are in what I like to call the dog days of summer.
Right.
Really, for me, it's not college football, it's sports. The finals are over. NHL's over. I will tell you that I watched the Stanley Cup a little closer than I had in past years because Nashville was in it. I've been a Predators fan for years, and really as the 8th seed, they jumped out over their hockey this year.
One second. We had a call, so we're going ahead and start over. Just kind of briefly. I do apologize. We had a call, and it cut us off for a brief second. So what were you saying?
It was Ghostbusters.
Who you gonna call?
No, what I was saying, I believe where we left off was, the NBA's over, Stanley Cup's over, and I really did watch the Stanley Cup a little more than usual. I usually keep up with it, have the games on, but I kind of got into it. Actually was pacing back and forth in front of the television, especially in games, not game 5, that's for damn sure. It was 7-0, but
Right.
the game the other night where Nashville, I've been a Nashville fan, pseudo fan for years. I've kept up with them if I've ever kept up with the hockey team, the Predators, and they lost. Allowed a goal with just over a minute left, and then they pulled the goalie, allowed another one. So it's kind of, I don't follow baseball. I follow the standings, and the Braves aren't good this year, obviously. They're not at the bottom, but, baseball has too many games to follow. So
Yes.
We're in the dog days of summer of sports, and we're all looking forward to September 2nd.
I disagree. I say we're in the dog days of summer after the College World Series of baseball.
See, I just don't want. Alabama's not in it. State didn't make it.
I know,
so I'm just
I
don't watch them much.
I know, but what I'm saying is, Oregon State, LSU, A&M, Florida. I mean, there's a lot of good teams in there.
I'll keep an eye on it, but like I said, I won't invest any emotion in it because I don't have a team that I like in there.
Well, I'll
If
definitely.
State would have made it, I would have absolutely been watching.
Right. Well, you got to pull for the SEC now.
Well, I don't have to. I don't know. LSU, and I will pull for LSU over Florida.
Huh?
I will pull for LSU over Florida.
Right.
If that happens.
Well, guys, I think that's. You got anything else to add?
No, just thank you guys for the birthday wishes. If you gave me any, if you didn't, that's okay.
I got you. All right, guys. Well, we're going to sign off here. And since we are an SEC show, I think it's only fair that we sign off with Go Tigers, Gig 'em, and Go Gators in the College World Series. Do you agree?
I agree.
Thank you, guys. Peace.